Hello and welcome to OLM Issue Triage. Today is Thursday, May 13th. Go ahead and share my screen and we can get started looking at some open GitHub issues against OLM. First issue, does OLM automatically convert deprecated APIs? Okay. So I think this is around getting served versus stored versions of your CRD back. Looks like Kevin responded to this. Okay, I think this is like more of a support question. And I'm not sure there's anything that's actionable in this one. From our end, I think it's more just general questions. I don't know how do other folks on the call feel about this.
Are there any more follow-up questions, or can we just close it?
I don't think so. I think there was a follow-up question around what happens in a situation where the cluster is an older version. V1 beta 1 CRD has been created and the cluster is upgraded to 1.22 or OCP 4.9. Does the CRD remain but non-functional? Right. And then Horace said the CRDs are stored in etcd, but clients can't get them from the API server, and I think that's correct. Yeah, so there's no follow-up per se. I think there's probably some confusion around this topic now that we're getting to the release that's actually going to deprecate some of these APIs, especially the CRDs, V1 beta 1 CRDs. Maybe it's worth thinking about trying to have a doc somewhere that says like this is what's going to happen with V1 beta 1 CRDs. I don't know. But it's pretty obvious that it's going to be deprecated in the kube docs. So,
yeah, it's probably worth calling it. I mean, this is like, I know that everybody's really focused on the CRD problem, but this is kind of scoped much more broadly to all of the V1 beta 1 deprecations that are happening in Cube. And we support a lot more than just CRD. That's just the front and center one, right? Like there's a bunch of RBAC stuff that's going away, and I wonder if if we want to do anything there, we probably just want to say, here's the list of OLM stuff that's supported to be part of a bundle in, whatever the current release is, and here's what's going away in the next release because we're going to be on that Cube version.
Yeah, I wonder if that sort of information would be good in like a blog post or something. Like, I guess we can make a doc for it. It would just. All right, so I'm going to respond and say, I think this is a valid.
I was just going to ask, is it worth thinking about this in terms of dependency resolution? Because we really can't do anything about the cluster itself being upgraded to something that doesn't support operators that are already installed. But what we can do is use our runtime constraints story to sort of block things from being installed on incompatible clusters anyway, or from being resolved. And so like, I don't know if that's a natural consequence of runtime constraints, it would be nice to point out. Or if it's not, maybe we want to bake it into that story.
Yeah, I think I'm not familiar with the runtime constraints, but I think that does make sense. Especially if we are saying we want to sort of alert, I think on those types of APIs, then we can also, right, like it's basically in like 1.21, it's an alert, but it can still go through as a warning. But in 1.22, it should be like a constraint, or we should, we shouldn't not allow it in 1.21, but in 1.22 it won't be possible. So
Well, yeah, like I guess I'm just trying to say, like, as a natural result of being able to have a set of constraints added to your cluster or properties added to your cluster that OLM takes into account when resolving updates and dependencies. If one of those things is that the cluster provides a certain API or it doesn't provide a certain API, and that tells OLM not to, like, it just won't be resolved.
right.
I digress. Sorry, maybe I'm derailing this.
No, I think it's valuable because we do need to kind of think about it going forward. But for this one, I think, is there anything more that we wanted to do here? Now, since the issue, I think it's largely been addressed. I think we could just say, this issue seems to be I think this is good for now, and we can continue unless anyone objects. To move on to the next one.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. OLM seems to be logging to standard error. Is this? I think we saw this with something with like controller runtime or something, some kind of bug. Assuming this is true. Klog writes to standard error by default. It's v4. Okay, so this is definitely something. We said v4. Okay, so this seems like a actionable item. We want login to show up as info. This looks like a valid bug. Do we want to pull this bug into the next release? It seems like a pretty small change.
It probably is reasonable. I'm curious if we can like go look at the history of why that was set that way. I'm wondering if it's possible that we're hiding some other unrelated issue, and that's like, I don't know, maybe there was something where we were omitting way too many logs or something like that.
Okay.
Right.
Just-
We used to leave all of the stuff in debug mode originally,
Yeah.
so maybe it's a holdover from that.
I'm curious, like, is it particularly wrong to log as standard error? Like, I don't know, it seems like this isn't necessarily a bug, but just like an integration issue between how OLM logs and how Datadog expects logs.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm asking is like, is this like, do we want to fix this? Do we consider this to be a bug?
Presumably, this would be a problem with anything that uses Klog, right?
Right, and I could easily see someone else opening an issue like in 2 weeks that says, hey, everything is logging to standard out, but I need it on standard error because I want to integrate with this other thing.
Yeah, I guess that's what seems weird to me is like, if you want to fix this, you can just edit the manifest, right? Like, seems like that should be simple enough. We could just document it and then.
So you'd edit it to what? So by default, it goes to standard error and it says V4. So you would say log the standard error false.
Well, it looks
I
like
think
you
you-
set that to false, it logs to a file.
Right.
I wonder if you can set the file to dev standard out and it would work. We'd have to try that out probably.
So is it- yeah. 'Cause- Um, yes, there's a little bit here about standard error. Okay. To it's not entirely clear how to do that, but presumably there's a way to do that.
I think maybe we want to test it before replying and saying, here's what you do. So we might want to just have somebody take a look at this.
I mean, we could also kind of punt it back and say, would you be able to modify
Yeah.
Klog flags to get your desired behavior?
The always pointing out the caveats. It's hard to, as not as an engineer, but there's if they're coming from like some managed platform, say OpenShift, changing those manifests would be not a great experience.
That's fair, but us modifying the upstream manifests here is not going to
Totally.
solve that problem anyway. And I also, the reason I'm wondering if it's set that way is specifically because I'm wondering, like, I've seen bugs in OpenShift where they're like, hey, you guys are emitting too many logs and you're causing us problems. And then we had to make a bunch of changes to like reduce the scope of logs.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know that we would let you configure that easily in OpenShift.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I'm gonna leave this with a question to the reporter. See. Seems like on our end, we probably do want to look into this a little bit more to see, if we can get the flags to be a certain way. And why we are logging everything as standard error, if it's just because that's the default behavior of Klog. And why that's the default behavior of Klog too is a different question. So does anybody want to look into this? I think we could maybe actually put it in the backlog until they respond, or we can put it in upcoming release. I don't know. Depends.
I think probably just leave it as is. I don't know that we want to set. The backlog probably seems fine for this one, if anything. I don't know that we want to set a release date on it when it's not clearly.
Right, it's not clearly a bug. So, I agree. Does anybody feel like looking into this logging flag issue?
You can throw it at me. I can try to take a quick look.
Okay, if it doesn't go to anyone, we'll go to Kevin, and we can figure it out. Basically, see what they come back with, and cool. Next one. Catalog image update EDE test. May not be tearing down completely.
Looks like Ben opens.
Image update. Scopio pod. Okay, this is a test I wrote. This is pod already exists. Okay, so this just gonna be on me. I think it probably is something we have a bunch of these things that are on tests that are flaky or not tearing down or whatever. I guess we can put this one in the next release, I think, since it's just overall impacts the stability. Yeah, I'll try to get to it by the next release. Probably it's not a huge huge burden. Okay, all right. Yeah, you can just go on from that one. CI does not work besides the PR that has any change. Change docs. Yeah, so this is, I think, flakes in the EDE test suite from changing something in docs. And I think we have in our GitHub actions, we have commits, the CI runs only go on changes to things not in docs, for example. Some master. Deploy. Not doc design. Right, so these upstream tests, this upstream test suite. I'm wondering if we should do more to basically put this not doc in everything so that we don't run into this kind of issue. Because I know this is frustrating for contributors who are trying to do like doc changes, is like all the CI fails, even though it has nothing to do with the doc change, of course. Do we feel like we can just take any doc changes and have the CI just be green for them automatically? Is that a good idea? Or basically not run it?
I think that's generally fine unless we have any CI checks that like actually run over the docs, like checking links and that kind of thing.
Right, like links and linters and stuff. I don't believe we have anything like on the markdown level for anything in OLM at the moment.
But I think to answer your question, for tests that test Go code or any code, I don't think there's any reason to run those tests if the only changes in the PR are against docs.
To all, add those to all CI tests. Basically, any change to docs only, well, basically to /doc change to. So is that fair to say? Is that, I think, what we want?
I think that's fair if we say that we don't have any tests for the docs themselves, but that might, like, I could see us changing that and saying, oh, well, we want to start running some linters and checks against the docs, in which case that wouldn't be true. But I think as of right now, that would be true.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to point out. I think that because we also have that upstream doc site that we are, it's more visible than the, the like technical docs on the OLM doc site. I think that we can see whether we really want to, like, we have a lot of linting on that repository.
Yep.
And I think that makes sense. Here it might just be like some developer code. Yeah, developer docs. Okay. So we potentially add this. Okay, so I think this is a valid sort of to do. I don't know if I'd call it a bug per se. In terms of priority, maybe we want to put it.
I would probably vote for 019 just because it seems like a fairly simple fix and it seems high impact, especially for outside contributors that find a simple doc change they want to make. Although, again, like you said, it's just the developer docs in the repo. So
I'm fine with taking this. I already have a PR up for splitting up some of the workflows. So it seems pretty trivial just to tack it onto this if you want to throw it in 19.
Okay. All right. Yeah. If you
and then I don't know. I think adding a markdown linter for docs is, that's pretty simple. I don't see why we would want to do that. Yeah, I get frustrated when I see broken links in developer documentation.
I would say that we had some linters like that on the SDK docs at one point, and if you're not careful with what you're linking to, like links can break or flake frequently, and that also gets annoying. So I think there is a little bit of a trade-off in terms of like whether to run linters or not, or like link checkers. For example, I think we saw, like, I can't remember, maybe it was GitHub links, or maybe there was another site that would just like randomly return 500 errors every now and then, and like that would fail the link checker. So I don't think it would be a bad thing to turn it on, but if it gets to be like, oh, this is annoying, then we could probably turn it back off if it's just for developer docs.
Yeah, no, I mean, we can give it, I think, yeah, we do have some external links in our docs. I don't think we have that many, but yeah, it looks like clearly we do. Okay, but let's pull that into the next release. And let's go on to the next one. Aggregated cluster role support in CSV. Okay. So, okay, I think it's pretty clear what the reporter is asking for. Does anybody have any ideas on, is this something that we simply didn't get around to supporting, or is there a reason why we don't support aggregated cluster roles like this in the CSV from a security point of view? Or
I don't know that we don't want to support them for a security related reason. Presumably, we don't do this because managing the complexity of aggregating stuff up in the way that we apply these manifests is part of the problem. So we never built in support for it. I'm assuming that's the case. I don't know what the history is.
could you make an aggregated cluster role that could match other roles that potentially we wouldn't want? We wouldn't want the role to have rules for. I guess I'm just wondering if the answer here is just simply we should get around to this and we haven't yet, or is it that we don't want it? It seems like it's not that we don't want to do it per se.
I mean, presumably, eventually, when we overhaul the RBAC stuff that we've been talking about, and further down the line, when we have arbitrary manifests in the operator bundle, like that will support you to apply whatever you want onto the cluster. So that's why I say I don't know that it's something we're trying to avoid. It's just something that I don't think we've built yet because it's a slightly non-trivial problem. And I don't know that there's like a ton of people who have this specific use case.
So I'll say that being said, it doesn't seem. So basically, we're saying this is a valid thing, but we don't really want to prioritize it in the near term.
Yeah, I think more likely you just get it for free when we implement some of the other stuff that we're talking about.
Do we have any docs or anything about any of that that we could link to yet?
I mean, there's definitely stuff about supporting arbitrary manifests. I don't know that there's like upstream docs that specifically say that. And on the RBAC stuff, I don't think there's anything that's more than like Evan wrote a HackMD at one point. I don't know that we are ready to share any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we probably don't want to, this will probably confuse people.
It's not even that one. There's another one, I think, somewhere that has like a super high level straw man to RBAC.
I guess I think that's fine. I'm just trying to think about this from the perspective of a community member that's like, hey, I want this feature. And, if they wanted to help contribute to it or were interested in what the progress was, it'd be a little annoying to get the response like, yep, you'll get this for free. And then that's it. So I don't know, maybe it's okay. Like maybe we could say like, we're in very early stages of talking about a large overhaul, and you kind of have that there, but I'm trying to think like, how will that comment be received?
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't think we want to come off as saying, but yeah, we don't want to come off as rude, but I think that's kind of like conceptually what our take on it now is. I wonder how we can be more polite about it.
Maybe it's all you need to do is add another sentence that says like, as we flesh more of this out, we'll try to keep you updated. And ask if there's, if our design is going to meet what their use case is.
Yeah, I'm wondering if the last sentence in the previous paragraph we should reword.
Yeah, I agree. I would take out that being said, it doesn't seem like there's a huge demand for this feature. So we will not. Yeah, like where it says OLM users, there you go.
Yeah, maybe something like we're imagining that OLM users will get this.
Okay. What was the last sentence? I think, Kevin, you were saying, asking if it fulfills their requirements or something.
Oh, that was me just saying like,
Oh, Joe.
we might ask them, later we'll give them an update that says like, hey, here's our design doc that we came up with. And I guess what I was saying is like, we could like A, show it to them, and B, like ask if they have any feedback about it. But I think what you've got here is pretty good.
Okay. I think that does sound better. So does anybody want? I think we probably then do want to keep this in the backlog and have the assignee be responsible for relaying whatever information we ultimately have to this person when we get to that point. Does that sound reasonable? Since we are saying we're going to keep them updated. I think it'll be easy to forget to do that, but we probably want to do that, or how do we feel about this?
I think that's probably reasonable.
Okay.
I think we might want to think in general about how do we keep track of these kinds of things. I don't know that we have something good, or that I can imagine something really good right now. But I think in the short term, that's fine. And maybe we can try to just keep an earmark on this and come back.
Yeah. Okay. We want to put this on. Does anyone feel like they want to keep track of the permissions for arbitrary objects? And then
Yeah, if you want to throw it to me, that's fine.
Okay. Kevin, you have a million things going on, so I don't know if you remember to update this, but we'll see. I think triaging this in general is going to be is helpful. Interesting. Okay. So we have a little bit of time left. I guess we could go on to the registry side with about 20 minutes left. Let's see what we have going on the registry side. Test registries flakes with the race detector. Okay, I know we definitely had race detector failures at some point, and then they were fixed, and there's new ones. Joe, do you want to speak to this since it's your?
Yeah, so we added a feature that enables automatic retries when pulling images from registries.
Mhm.
And there's a test that is pretty complex that basically injects some middleware into the actual like library that does the pulling, and it's like flaky racy, which is super annoying. So when I merged that test, it all passed and things look good, but then more PRs come in and it fails on that race condition. So I think we just need to go and either remove that test or fix the test so it doesn't race. But I remember spending probably like a couple of hours trying to get it to not race, and I couldn't figure out exactly why it thought it was still racing. So it's not a simple fix, I don't think. But either way, I think we need to resolve it because flaky tests are no good.
Do these tests use the underlying, the like in process Docker registry?
No,
Implementation? Okay.
I don't think so.
So they actually pull from the external registry, or they don't pull at all?
I think they don't pull it all. I think I'm able to mock whatever I need to mock, but I can't remember. It's been a little while.
Okay,
I'd have to go look.
fair enough.
But we can assign this to me and put it in the next version. I just wanted to capture it because it's like, yeah, this keeps coming up. I don't have time to do it at this moment, but I don't want to forget about it.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. Looks like yeah, looks like you're mocking it out and you have some middleware.
Yeah, it's something to do with that middleware.
Okay, cool. All right, I'll sign it to you now. And then I think this is an example of something that we do want to pull into the next release, right, Joe?
I think the sooner we solve this, the better. So yeah, I don't think this will block that if we don't get to it, but ideally we get to it quickly because it's annoying.
Yeah, and I think, so I know there's several folks on the call in the community, but sort of on the Red Hat side, I've talked to Dave a little bit about how we can sort of translate, you know, this triaging into sort of our planning day to day, so that we can you know, get to issues like this. So okay, so then next one, make OPM Arch aware and build multi-arch manifested images for different architectures. Okay, so I think this is a known issue. Now that we're moving to GitHub Actions, we can build for these different platforms. We have an upstream issue in a different repository. So I think this is sort of going on with, this is in our backlog. This is going on with our overall upstream overhaul, in that when we move the image building right from Quay to GitHub Actions, we can build multi-arch images that support these different platforms. I think this is something that we identified as in our discussion as something that we wanted. Is there really anything else we can do?
It sounded like the reporter was interested in potentially working on this. I think based on some of the discussion we had about how we wanted to overhaul, it's different than what they were suggesting they were going to do. But as long as they would be open to how we thought, you know, it would make the most sense, we could basically say like, hey, would you be interested in taking a stab at overhauling our release process to look more like this, which is that second leak I put, which is the operator SDK release process. So it's not like a super straightforward first issue, but it sounds like the reporter is competent enough to maybe be able to do something like this. Not sure what others think.
So right, so this builds the image. Does this push it to, where does this push it out to? Does it push it to anyone? Push the
It will
tag out
push
to,
based on the image tag, and it only pushes if it's not a pull request and it has a tag, or it's master, or whatever that last ref is.
right, okay, and it pushes it to Quay. Okay, I was just confirming. Cool. Yeah, okay, so I guess we can ask them if they're interested.
Yeah, and as Kevin mentioned in the chat, you can tag one of us as, like, we'd be happy to help handhold on whatever, you know, if they have questions or if they are interested in working on it.
Yeah, you can probably point them to our Slack channel as well.
Uh, so beyond this, do I need to, you're saying pose the question as to whether they would actually want to pursue that, or do we just leave it at this? I don't think it's really fair to ask them to do it.
Well, I think in the initial, yeah, she says, or he, I don't know, they, feel free to assign me to this task. So they're pretty interested in working on this, it seems like. I just think we have a different take on how we want it to be done. So we could say like, are you interested in doing it this other way?
Okay.
But yeah, I think your comment there is fine, and we can see what they say.
Yeah, we can kind of just see. I could just say you are interested in and they have access to ZMP server systems. So yeah, this might actually be the right person to do this if they have access to these systems, because we never have access to them. So we don't really know if they work or not, even if we build them. So let's just put this. I guess we need to see, right, whether they're interested in doing. I think we are interested in doing something like this in the near term.
Yeah, so I think probably put it in the milestone that we want it done in. And if this person doesn't think they can do it by then maybe we take it over and do it ourselves.
Okay, I think I don't think we figured out how much we want to do in the next release versus the one following. Potentially we want to do this in like 1.9 in the subsequent one if we're doing different things in the next one. This is now in registry too, it's not OLM, so maybe it'll be, might be more or less confusing because of Seago. I don't know. I propose we maybe put it in 119 for now.
Seems fine to me.
And in terms of signees, I guess we'll wait to hear back as to whether maybe we don't assign anyone for now. We just wait to hear back.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, the question is, will we see it again if we put it in a milestone and remember to actually assign someone? Why don't you assign it to me for now?
Okay.
And then that way I'll be able to go look at it. And I'll comment in here and say like, I've just got it assigned to me so we can keep track.
Right. Yeah, so Joe, so that brings up an interesting question of like, basically, I think in our triage process, we have a few minutes left at the end here. Like we're doing a good job of putting things into milestones and assigning them to people. Do you think that we, as part of this issue triage process, we should go and look at what is there, or is that something that is sort of done asynchronously outside of this call? Or how do we stay on top of what we have in our different milestones, sort of?
So I think the way that we did that in SDK was kind of each assignee is able to kind of quickly, find the issues they're assigned to. And I think there was an expectation there that you're kind of following up and trying to work on things as you have time. And then as you get closer to a release, like when we say like, okay, we're going to have a release in 2 weeks or whatever, then maybe there's a separate like release planning meeting where we go and look at a particular milestone, like the next milestone, and make sure that everyone who's assigned issues there, A, knows that they're assigned, and B, like can make a call about whether or not they'll be able to do it, and C, whether we think that's a blocker or not, or whether we should reevaluate and push it to the next milestone.
Okay, yeah, so I think that step is definitely something that we want to have as we start putting more and more issues into milestones. We just need to be generally cognizant of what we're committing to and how.
It might not be a bad idea to spend like 5 minutes per repo at the end of a meeting looking at the next milestone, just as like a quick, sanity check.
Yeah, for example, right, like 019, the next OLM one already has quite a few 12 issues in it. A lot of them are related, seems like they're related to tests and flakes and docs. Some kind of RFE. Yeah, I think this probably just needs to get cleaned up. I don't know how much of this is probably done. But yeah, it's worth looking at, and let's see on the registry side as well what we have in next release. 119 we just have the one issue. Okay.
118 is the next one there though.
Oh, 118. Okay. Oh, okay. Yeah, 118. 5. Okay.
I think probably the next step is establishing some sort of release rhythm. And then once if and when we have that, then it'll be easier to know when to actually go back and start paying more attention to the milestones.
Yes, and I think that's a good point, and that's something that we actually had as a priority to do in this in this sprint context, to the PR that Kevin had. But you're right, that it's sort of dependent on how we time our releases. But
Yeah.
okay.
I'm planning on just resurrecting that PR and trying to get something merged. So that might be worth having a discussion about next week at the working group. And then we can, if there are any problems or disagreements, we can hash them out there. And otherwise, just get at least an initial version of a release cadence agreed on.
Yep, that sounds good. And I think it does make sense, as we just did, to sort of look at what we're putting in our different milestones, maybe for a few minutes at the end of the meeting, so that we kind of know what we're committing to as a team. Cool. So I think with that, I'll give everyone a few minutes back. Thank you for coming to Issue Triage today, and see everyone at the working group meeting next week. Bye, everyone.